The Persian Empire stands as one of the largest and most influential empires in history, especially the Achaemenid Empire. But it achieved this status not only through its enormous territories and military conquests, but also for its economic machinery that made it possible for the Persian Empire to expand this quickly. Stretching from the Indus Valley to Egypt and the Balkans, the Persian Empire at its zenith was an economic powerhouse that seamlessly integrated diverse regions into its economic machinery. Founded by the visionary Cyrus the Great, the empire laid the groundwork for an economic system that was way ahead of its time. For example, the Royal Road was not just a pathway for armies, but a bustling trade route that shows the empire's economic foresight. The introduction of standardized coinage, the daric, revolutionized trade and commerce, making transactions smoother across its huge pan. But how did an empire with such diverse cultures and geographies manage their economy so effectively? How did it ensure the wealth from the Nile Delta was effectively used, or that the trade secrets from Mesopotamia were integrated into their own economy? Welcome to Past Perspectives, and today we take a look at the insane economy the Persian Empire was able to build. We'll uncover the strategies, systems, and innovations that not only managed to keep such a huge territory under control, but also laid the foundation for modern economic practices. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another topic that was never even talked about in history class. As I said earlier, the Persian Empire at its peak spanned from the Indus Valley to Egypt and from the Caucasus Mountains to their Persian Gulf. The expansion of their land was not just a sign of military power, but also a reflection of the Persians' strategic foresight in picking the territories. They managed to capture diverse locations that all were able to contribute to the economy with their goods. The Nile Delta in Egypt, for example, was an agricultural gold mine, ensuring a steady supply of grain. Later on, you'll see that agriculture in general was one of the biggest drivers of their wealth because they were able to ensure food security. Another example is the Indus Valley, which became a hub to commerce and trade, and it connected the empire to the riches of the Far East. Strategic locations like the city of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, not only showcased the empire's status, but also served as vital administrative and economic center. And everything was connected with infrastructure like the Royal Road. While the Persian Empire was not particularly known for its naval skills, its roads were even more impressive. The Royal Road stretched over 2,500 kilometers and allowed trade, communication, and movement of troops. This road alone connected Sardis in Anatolia to Susa in Elam, which also ensured a seamless flow of goods. But we are going more in-depth on the importance of the Royal Road later on. Further, they connected the economy by establishing a standardized coinage, which was called daric. This gold coin got its name from Darius I, and introduced during his reign, it became the standard gold currency of the empire. Additional to that, they introduced its silver counterpart, the siglos. Overall, the introduction of this currency revolutionized trade and commerce in the empire. Because before standardized coinage, trade was primarily based on the barter system or local currencies, which could be gnarly and inconsistent. Therefore, the daric provided a uniform value system and not only made the trade easier, but also more efficient, as the daric was widely recognized and accepted beyond the empire's borders. So the strategic locations of cities they captured and the agricultural and currential wealth have been the first two cornerstones of the empire's economy. The next one has been the Tade itself, as trade and commerce were the lifeblood of the Persian Empire, ensuring not only the prosperity of the countries that joined the Persian Empire, but it also integrated them easily in the empire. As I already briefly mentioned earlier, central to this was the Royal Road, and many historians consider this an engineering wonder of the ancient world. And at that time, it was more than just a road. It was the primary artery of their economic system. Like the coin system, it was built during the reign of Darius I, and the road was lined with inns, stations, and fortifications, so it ensured safe travel for merchants and armies. This way, they were able to move goods from one end of the empire to the other. Precious metals, textiles, spices, and grains were transported through this road, making it a bustling route. Additionally to that, the road played a pivotal role in the standardization of weights and measures across the empire to further streamline the trade. Further, they established an efficient postal system along the royal road, ensuring communication and administrative directives. But the Persian Empire's trade and influence was not limited to its own borders. Over the years, they established trade relations with distant lands like India or the city-states of Greece. Goods like ivory, spices, and precious stones from India, timber from Lebanon, and wine from Greece flowed into the empire. In return, the empire exported textiles, metalwork, and agricultural products. These trades had several advantages for the Persian Empire. Economically, it ensured a steady flow of wealth into the empire. Politically, it strengthened diplomatic ties with neighboring regions. And culturally, it enriched the Persian society with diverse influences like art and food. As you can imagine, the Persian Empire also established a tax system to collect revenue and fund their own operations. Due to the sheer size, they needed to develop a robust system that would effectively collect taxes, and with that, the satrapy system was born. Basically, the entire empire was divided into several provinces known as satrapies, each governed by a satrap. These satraps were appointed by the king, and normally they were chosen from the Persian nobility or trusted officials. Their primary responsibility was to govern their respective provinces, ensuring law and order, overseeing administrative tasks, and the most important of all, collecting taxes and tributes. The number of satrapies varied over time, but at its peak during the reign of Darius, there were about 20 satrapies. Each satrapy was unique in its resources, population, and economical potential. Recognizing this, the Persian administration did not impose a uniform tax system. Instead, taxes were tailored based on the satrapy's wealth, production, and capabilities. This approach ensured that taxes were fair and did not overburden any particular region, which further stabilized the economy of the Persian Empire. But beyond regular taxation, the empire also collected tributes from its provinces. Tributes were not just monetary, they often included goods that were unique or abundant in a particular region. For example, Egypt would contribute grain as part of its tribute. The reason for this tribute had three main reasons. At first, it ensured a steady flow of essential goods to the heart of the empire, ensuring that the capital and central regions always were well supplied. Second, by accepting tributes in the form of regional specialties, the empire promoted local industries and crafts. And third, it was a constant reminder of the empire's dominance and the province's allegiance to the central authority. To ensure transparency and fairness in the collection of taxes and tributes, the king wouldn't only rely on his satraps. Occasionally, he would send royal inspectors, known as the king's eyes and ears, to make sure they are not abusing their power or engage in corruption. If we compare this tax system to other systems of that time, it was a masterclass of efficiency and economic foresight. They ensured that the capital was doing well and their chests always filled. But at the same time, the provinces lived a relatively good life. Another huge contributor to the empire's wealth was religion. Usually, religion and economy are seen as two different categories. However, in the empire, it was another way to further fuel the empire's economy. See, the primary religion was Zoroastrianism, and one of the cornerstones of their policy was religious tolerance, which played a huge role in the economic landscape. To break it down for you really quickly, Zoroastrianism, founded by the prophet Zoroaster, was the dominant religion of the Persian Empire. Central to their religion was the constant fight of good versus evil and the emphasis on individual responsibility for one's lives. Therefore, honesty, hard work, and charity were their core beliefs, and these values reflected in the empire's economic dealings. For instance, fair trade practices were encouraged, and excessive interest on loans was looked down upon. Another example are the Zoroastrian fire temples, which have been the main place of practicing religion, and they received a lot of gifts and donations from the faithful. They then used this money to reinvest into the community. For example, they supported infrastructure projects, helping the poor and fostering learning and culture. But this was not the only part of religion that helped. The Persian Empire was a mosaic of cultures and religions, and there have also been Jews, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, and many other religious groups. The difference to other empires of the time was that the Persians did not impose their religion on conquered people. By allowing regions to practice their faiths and helping them to maintain their temples, shrines, and religious institutions, which on the other side ensured the smooth flow of tributes and taxes. At the same time, religious centers and the places around them have often been economic hubs, facilitating trade, crafts, and local economies. By protecting these centers, the empire indirectly also kept their trade up. Moreover, religious tolerance promoted stability. Since the Persian Empire didn't force their faith upon anyone and didn't have incredibly high taxes, regions were less likely to rebel or resist Persian rule. Looking at the military campaigns of the Persian Empire, we can definitely say that their expansion came at a huge economic cost. For example, the Greco-Persian Wars were probably the most cost and resource-intensive wars for them. These wars spanned over decades, and it required the mobilization of huge amounts of naval and land forces. While the empire definitely had the funds to do these campaigns, the immense time frame of these wars and setbacks started to hurt the empire's treasuries and was also part of their downfall. But we are going to talk about that in just a second. Now, while these wars have been extremely expensive, the military campaigns, if they were successful, also came with a lot of benefits, because conquered territories gave the Persians access to new resources, trade routes, and taxes, but it still was a double-edged sword. On the one side, it required tons of resources, but it also brought a lot of long-term benefits. As the Persian Empire expanded, the very factors that contributed to its rise slowly began to become challenges. For example, as the empire grew, the empire needed more and more administrative and military forces, which again were resource-intensive. At the same time, they needed to constantly maintain and upgrade roads, fortifications, and supply chains to the treasury. Especially distant provinces, even if they were rich in resources, were extremely expensive to defend. Therefore, these provinces faced constant external threats, which also hurt the empire's economy because it made maintaining these provinces extremely unprofitable. However, their economic challenges haven't been their downfall. While the expensive military operations and maintenance of their empire was a burden, these have been challenges they might have been able to overcome. But as these challenges started, the empire slowly had to deal with political intrigues, disputes about their economy, and rebellions. Over time, the satraps wanted to have more autonomy and even searched for total independence. In the eyes of the populace, this weakened the central authority and stretched the empire's resources extremely thin, as it had to deal with rebellions and make sure to instill loyalty. And externally, there has been the emergence of a new and ambitious power. The rise of Macedon under Philip II and later his son Alexander the Great were a huge threat to the Persian Empire. Alexander and his well-trained army and innovative military tactics became an enemy the Persian Empire had never faced before. The Battle of Issus and the Battle of Gaugamela have been devastating losses for the Persian forces, and they were outmaneuvered and out-strategized by Alexander the Great. It took Alexander the Great just 4 years to win the war, and in the process, he was able to capture key cities and provinces, including the symbolic burning of Persepolis, was the beginning of a fast end of the Persian power and the end of the Achaemenid dynasty. And while their downfall was fast and fatal for their economy, we still need to remember that during their golden days, the Persian Empire was one of the biggest and most wealthy empires the world has seen so far, with an economic system that was way ahead of its time. Thank you for joining us today at Past Perspectives as we looked at the insane economy of the Persian Empire. If you want to learn about more history topics that have never been talked about in history class, make sure to subscribe to our channel. With that being said, thanks for watching, and until next time.